They scolded us for loaning him something that was cheating, and then complaining because it was in there. So we got caught.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode at BarryTsGarage of Ask Ed. I'm Barry T, and there's Ed.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Ed. It's great to see you again.
Nice day today.
It's a beautiful day. You know what? We're having a lot of fun, and I thank you for your questions, and thank you for supporting our channel too. It's really great that you guys are watching and asking questions. That means you're engaged and involved, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm going to get right into it here. I've got a note from Corey, and I think this is a new one. I don't remember a question like this before. Ed, do you have any experience with the Oldsmobile 350 diesel engine?
No, not very much, because it had, I remember it seemed like at the 350 and the diesel, basically it was not a good idea. The injector pump was down in the intake manifold, kind of awkward type thing, but the 350 had pretty narrow rod bearings and stuff. And then he put a diesel with 12.5 to 1 compression or something to make it a diesel.
Yeah.
It was really hard on that. So the rod bearings went out a lot.
I see.
So the best thing we could do is some of those had that 350 diesel in a truck.
Yep.
Yeah. So we took that out and put a regular 455 Pontiac in it, or else a 500-inch Cadillac.
Okay, then you're in
A couple
business.
guys took that diesel motor right out and put a 500-inch Cadillac in it, and it just ran so nice, made a nice truck out of it.
Okay.
But that's about it. We would never spend time overhauling one.
Okay, so that might answer the follow-up question he had. Corey was asking, did you ever convert one to gasoline?
Yes.
You did?
Well, not convert that motor.
Not that block,
No, we just changed the whole motor. Because you can't put gasoline on a diesel motor with high compression like that, no.
No. There's a long-running myth that all they did is took a normal Chevy 350 and changed a few things to convert them to diesel, but Corey believes they actually had a lot more iron in them. They were heavier blocks.
I don't know if the block was any heavier, but they were casted different because it was casted that manual fuel pump.
Ah, okay.
Ran off the timing chain things down in there someplace.
Okay.
But it was casted right in the intake manifold where the intake's supposed to be, the carburetor's supposed to be.
Definitely in a different block.
Yeah,
then.
Totally different block, yeah.
Okay. So that cancels that myth.
Yeah, that was not a good idea.
No, they had a lot of problems with
The
that.
people that had them, I think the old man that had them and drove them nice.
Yeah.
I think they got a lot of gas mileage, like 32 or 35 miles to gallon, and they loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not anything for any kind of heavy abuse that come apart.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, okay. All right, good.
All right.
Good question.
Yeah, that was something really different. So, okay, so this is kind of an open question from Gregory, and knowing that we've talked about little tricks in racing, you've had some good ones come up.
Okay.
He said, what can you think of as maybe the sneakiest thing you saw someone else use when they were being sneaky building their race cars, bending the rules, let's say?
One of the guys here in town, I think it had to do with a clutch. And of course, in our systems, we had to have a clutch.
Okay. It's part of the race rules?
Yeah, part of the rules and stuff, yeah. And you couldn't just eliminate that clutch. If something happened to the clutch disc, and you just can't put a piece in there that locks it up so you have no clutch.
I see.
You have to crank the starter, and when you crank the starter, the car starts to move.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, so it was that's when we were using 3-speed Saginaw transmissions, and we were leaving the first gear out and welding the thing up so it was just going second gear, second high,
Okay.
and reverse. We did a little thing. I did quite a few of those transmissions to pass that test. And I remember one time when one of the guys here in town, that we knew his clutch went out or broke something in there, and then come to find out one of the pit crew went over and seen him put this dog in there in his car that eliminated the clutch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we see him put it in there. You know, kind of in the pits, everybody's shuffling around helping this guy, and he was a well-known racer, competitive. We see him put it in there. So then, not necessarily. So, anyways, they got ready to go and to race it, and I think it was my son went over to the starter guy.
Yeah.
He said, "I seen him put that in there." So he says the starter official, it's up to you if you want to
Challenge it?
challenge it, yeah. And he didn't challenge it.
Huh. Okay.
That's okay. You know, it's up to him. It's
Right.
not us. And basically, if he challenged like that, he would cheat all the people in their audience.
Okay, right.
Yeah, everybody that watched the race.
Yeah.
He would know he's cheating. So come to find out, I think he went around the track maybe a half a dozen times or so, and the rear spring fell off his car.
Oh, no.
So he was done anyways.
Yeah, right.
So it was kind of funny at that. And then after a while, we come to find out one of our crew members loaned that thing to him. We didn't know that either. One of our crew members had it in the toolbox, and so he snuck it out of the toolbox, put it in his pocket, and went out and loaned it to the guy. So we found that out the next day, because they scolded us for loaning him something that was cheating, and then complaining because it was in there. So we got caught, but we really didn't get caught. It was kind of funny. It was, yeah, kind
You were
of
setting him up.
Yeah, we set him
looked
up,
like it, yeah.
supposedly, but we didn't know that. Yeah. One of the guys says, well, he was cheating. He says, well, yeah, but next day, I loaned that to him. We didn't even know he had one. So it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it was funny in town here, so we laughed, and
Yeah.
everybody had a good part. But other than that, that's about it.
That's good.
You know, I can't admit that I did anything wrong in our race car, which I'm not going to admit that.
Right.
But anyways, there was quite a story. Yeah, good.
Good.
It turned out just fine.
Yeah.
Nobody.
No harm
got
done at
hurt.
the end.
Yeah, nobody got hurt. So.
That's right. Okay, so Jeremy has a question about torque plates. He said, I've never understood torque plates. As soon as you hit the gas, your block is going to move and twist more than it would by tightening the head bolts. That's what he thinks.
No.
What really happens?
He's talking about that he doesn't understand the torque plate.
I guess he doesn't understand what the
Torque
purpose
plate on things. Anytime you tighten a bolt, torque a head bolt. So, for instance, if we didn't use a torque plate, then we would put this motor together. Let's say it's a 4-inch bore, 50 or 60 thousandths or even 30 thousandths. Then put the whole motor together, torque the heads down, start it up and run it. Maybe I'll just say one of our race car motors, and then race maybe 2 races, and take the head off and look at it. Mm-hmm. And right where the head bolt goes, there'll be a dark spot down the cylinder wall.
Okay.
For every head bolt around that cylinder wall.
There's a mark on the cylinder.
Yes, it was tighter. And the ring came up and run that, and it marked the cylinder wall, and would rub that. So every cylinder, if you look down the head bolt, there's a black streak right where a light black, not dark or anything, not heavy, but light streak down the head bolt, exactly where the head bolts are at. That would distort that much when you torqued it into the block.
So even as much as you do perfect machining for the bore,
yeah, not a torque plate.
Without a torque plate.
Yes.
So the torque plate pretends to be the cylinder head.
The cylinder head.
So
Exactly
now you've got
right.
the stress on the block while you're doing the machining.
That's right. Just like I said before, there's like a 302 Ford. A 302 Ford is okay, but they're really a weak block. Mm-hmm. I seen a guy one time, but he had a tapered shaft that he put through a main bearings on a 302 Ford.
Okay.
And it slid right through there. Torqued the heads on it, and it wouldn't go through.
That's quite a demo.
That's on the main bearings.
Wow.
That's how weak that block is. If you look at it, there's really not much material on a 302 Ford in the center mains, up by the camshafts and by the cylinder bores and stuff like that.
Okay.
So if there was ever a motor that was going to torque or flex from what that question was, it'd be a 302 Ford.
Okay.
I think that's the weakest motor I've ever seen in my whole life. And we know that.
Okay, and you overcome it somehow.
Yeah, torque plates on it.
So can you build an engine differently with torque plates built into the build?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just that makes it correct.
Okay.
But the bore wouldn't be correct, without the without the cylinder heads on. Once you put the heads back on, now it's machined with the heads on it.
Okay, got
or a torque plate. Same as the heads.
Yeah, got it.
So why wouldn't you use it?
Okay, so Clyde says, Ed, do you remember the graphite oil days? My parents said it was great. It was, if you used different oil after the graphite, your engine would spin bearings and blow up.
That's oil, graphite.
Yeah.
It's an oil base.
Okay.
So it must be, he was talking about that graphite would be some kind of an additive.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a oil base, oil additive called graphite.
Okay, that's not something you messed with.
No, I would not see that. We might have a tube of some kind of additive over here, would be a graphite, says on the tube, a tube of additive. You might put it on the bearings when you assemble the motor.
Okay, like assembly lube kind of a thing.
Yeah, but not necessarily add a quart of graphite to the oil, motor oil.
Yeah. Okay.
Or an amount like that. No, I've never seen that.
Okay. Well, Clyde, there you go. We don't know.
So we don't know.
That's okay. Michael says, why didn't General Motors use progressive vacuum for vacuum advance like everybody else? Was it because most GM motors had bad combustion chamber design on one side of the cylinder, which would ping and rattle the pistons, or why?
Because when you accelerate, you have no vacuum. Again, Ford runs on one vacuum port, and when you accelerate, then you get more vacuum and you get advance from that as you accelerate off that throttle valves.
Okay.
And Chevrolet, if you accelerate, it would drops all the vacuum away because you got no vacuum.
Yeah.
But Chevrolet really likes some advance, and again, there was a guy in here yesterday said he might bring his car by. He's got a 500-inch Cadillac,
Okay.
and he can't get it running right. He's done all kinds of things to it, and he just is not happy with it. And I know that 500-inch Cadillac really liked a lot of timing.
I see, yeah.
So I think that's probably his problem.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't think they've ever had any difference in chamber. Was that the question? Chamber.
Yeah, he was talking about combustion chamber design.
Chamber any different for which vacuum, which port you use on the vacuum? I don't think so.
Never noticed that.
No, dude. Yeah.
Okay. Patrick says, Ed, I need to know, have you ever treated vapor lock with wooden clothespins?
But vapor locks usually is a bad fuel pump.
Okay.
Not enough pressure and stuff. So
Let's back up 1 second, because not everybody has experienced vapor lock, because that's carburetor times, right?
yeah, it's carburetor. Yeah.
So could you explain just in very general terms what's happening
Well,
with
vapor lock is maybe the fuel pressure, instead of being 5 pounds, it's 3 or 3.5 or something like that. And then it gets so hot that just the fuel starts to separate. Because the fuel, any kind of fuel, liquid expands.
So the idea is
So
the
then when
fuel
the
is
fuel
expanding.
expands
Yeah.
and leaves a vapor thing in there, and it won't pump past that.
I see.
So therefore, the carburetor just runs out of fuel. So you have to let the engine cool off a little bit, and that, as soon as it cools off, the fuel pumps right by there and start up and off you go again.
So to put it another way, the fuel pump won't pump a vapor, it has to pump a liquid.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Okay, so that's what's really going on
That's
there.
really what's going on. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, you got other problems that I don't know if I've ever seen. I don't think I've never had a car with a vapor lock. And
Okay.
in my whole history of the old cars we used to have, and the Fords and
You still have a few cars running on carburetors around
Buickers
here.
and carburetors and things. I
Yeah.
never had one of myself personally have a vapor lock problem. But the same way, we used to have cool cans, and that was a government, I think, Oklahoma City, and I used to be a distributor for a cool can. It was an aluminum can had a coil in it,
Yeah.
fuel, and we filled it full of ice.
Okay.
So our fuel was cold. We go back into that cold fuel again, and the cold fuel condenses, and you got a lot more power.
Yeah.
Sometimes a car would run 2 or 3 miles an hour faster than a quarter mile with frozen fuel.
Uh-huh.
And we knew that in the junior fuel car too.
Okay. Interesting.
So the colder the fuel, the better.
Okay, so Warren is making a comment about, in one of our videos we talked about the more you bore out an engine, so a little bit thinner cylinder walls,
Sure.
that you said that it cools better.
Sure.
Okay, so he's commenting about that. He said, it makes sense to me as long as the cylinders are strong enough not to crack. What are Ed's thoughts on reverse cooling to push the coolant through the heads first, and then the cylinder block. They did that on some small block Chevrolets, he said.
I love that. Like the 95 Chevy Impala, that motor and that whole series was reverse cooling.
Yep.
And I think it worked perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that, but it was quite complicated. And once you change a system like this for a manufacturer to do that, then it's quite complicated for them to re-engineer all that stuff when normal people don't understand what's going on.
Right. So, yeah,
So they stopped, they quit doing it.
Okay.
Because I think that people, it was just a kind of it worked great.
Yeah.
I never seen anything, but they just stopped doing it because it was a abnormal thing.
Right.
It was almost trial and error.
Because if you think about it, almost all the heat is happening in the head, isn't it?
Yes.
Like that fire is in the...
Yeah, in the head, yes.
the head.
Around the head. Valves.
And the
in
hot-
the head surface, yeah, that's where the heat's
the
at.
exhaust valves in the
Yeah,
head.
the heat, there's no heat in the crankshaft.
Right.
No, none at all.
Right.
So then, all the heat, so even our cars, we put that hose, went from the water pump. You can buy a water pump with the fittings in it.
Yep.
And the water pump motor, cool air, cool water in the back of the motor
Right.
by the distributor in the intake. And we did that, and you can actually cool any of the small block Chevys. I don't care what you do with them.
Okay.
with
Just having that
system.
extra.
Yeah, and I see different systems like that, and I see somebody had a thing, and I don't see how. Again, I walk up to a motor and I see that's a race car motor, and I don't think he's got it plumbed right.
Right.
And it works for him.
Yeah. Interesting.
But
yeah.
the common sense there, you don't have it plumbed right. It's like the sprint car motors have got a big fitting. I mean, a big 1.5-inch fitting or so in the side of the motor.
Yeah.
Right in the side of the motor, not in the front by the water pump. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cylinder wall, of course, it has to be thick, to keep so it don't cave in and things like that. And,
Yeah.
And things, that's only common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick says he's rebuilding a Chevy 4.3, the V6.
4.3 V6,
Yep.
yes.
He says he's putting new heads and a mild cam and hydraulic roller lifters and rocker arms and valve springs. Okay. He says, I have a new Mellon high volume oil pump. Should I use that or go?
I don't think I would.
Okay.
It's a small motor. And again, I always said the Chevy oil pump, if it's a good oil pump, it pumps plenty of oil for Chevy. For any Chevy V8, that one pump it always has. I've never had
That's
any
not a
problem with a stock oil pump starving the motor. If you keep oil in it, it depends what you're doing with the pan. Sometimes it might have a deflector in it, so when you slam the brakes on, the oil don't run away from the pump, or go downhill, and things like this, and go uphill steep, and it floods the oil systems and stuff like this. But normally, it sounds like he's maybe just going to drive on the street and stuff, and a stock oil pump's plenty.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't hurt if the bigger the pump. But I don't think I would do that because it takes so much horsepower to pull it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's where on the distributor gear, mainly the distributor gear and the rear cam gear,
Yeah.
the gears on the thing. So
got
it
transfer-
don't sound like he's going to drag race it or something.
No.
If he was, he'd have a big old pan on it that hold 8 quarts of oil.
Right.
So there we
Yeah.
are.
And
Yeah,
the fact
good.
that he said he's using a mild cam.
Yeah, good
means-
question.
Yeah, that's
good
good.
question.
Okay. Okay, so here's a guy that's played with all kinds of carburetors. He agrees the Auto Light 4300 is terrible.
Yeah.
But it seems like everybody agrees on that. But he said he ran all kinds of Hawley carbs over the years, but the best carbs for him was the Carter Competition Series. The response was just awesome, and he still has 4 waiting in boxes for upcoming projects. Do you have any?
Carter Competition Series?
Yes.
Well, that would be like the AFB. That's a good carburetor.
Okay.
You should, keep them. Don't sell them.
Yeah, right.
Use them.
Use them.
You don't see them very anymore.
Okay.
But just like I'll just say that with the Edelbrock carburetors, seems like we're continuing. We sell a lot of them. I think we probably have in stock within the shelf. We probably have maybe 10, 15, or 20 of them in stock all the time. Those that we sell with our motors. And we like to run them a little bit, and forevermore I'm finding some problems with those.
Is that right?
Yeah, little things wrong with them, and they're not lean enough, or they're too lean, and things like this. And I think it's probably the manufacturing. And their carburetor is actually sensitive.
It's a precision thing,
It's a
isn't
precision. It's got to be right on.
it? Yeah.
The jets and stuff, or whatever you're using it for.
Yeah.
Again, I've had some of them that we experiment with some of our motors here we run and just play with it, and one adjusts one way and the other adjusts the other way. And I had one the other day, I couldn't, it wouldn't idle.
Huh.
So, and you had to put the choke on stuff, and it ran fine. But so it was really lean, so we just sent it back and got another one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tear it apart and start riching it.
Yeah,
with
right.
a brand new carburetor.
Yeah.
But I think even if some of them you take and put your hand somewhere close to the thing, it changes the way it runs by not touching anything. Just put your fingers in the top of the carburetor.
Okay.
They're that sensitive. So that'd be the same thing if you put an air cleaner on it.
Right. A little bit of restriction.
And actually put a restricted air cleaner on it. It'd probably run just fine, but who's going to do that?
Right.
That's against the rules.
That's right. We don't restrict airflow.
Yeah,
we
no,
keep it
just
going.
to get it to run right. But so again, back to the don't be worried if you find something wrong with the new Edelbrock carburetors.
Robert says, I think Bill Herschler, aka Mr. Bardahl, he would run a hose. You remember Bardahl?
Sure, yeah.
He would run a hose from his push car to the race car to warm up the race car engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've done that kind of thing?
Well, we have a heater in the trailer on the dragster,
Okay.
and we keep the engine warm.
Okay, yeah.
I think we went over that before.
Yes, we did.
And sometimes that we figured that we were having some different problems, and possibly it was because we were heating the motor up more than we should have been, and heating all the valve springs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, keeping them warm or hot. And I think we looked back at the problem we were having. I think it kind of went back to that heater.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of warm is okay,
A little
but
bit
not
warm,
too much.
too much is too much. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Especially then if we kept it warm right there, and then we started up and ran it. There's no radiator in the dragster.
Yeah, so it gets hot really
You
quick.
started, and by the time you let it burn out and back again, it was pretty warm.
Yeah, right.
We'd like to have it at 200 degrees, exactly perfect, but that was kind of hard to.
All right, now we got a dirt track racer question. John says back in the 80s, some dirt trackers were putting 350 olds piston rods in their small block Chevys for a more stroke. Have you heard of this? And he said, I think they also had thicker beams on the rod.
I have a set right here right now, Oldsmobile rods.
Do you?
For a 350 Chevy.
Apparently you know about this.
Yeah, I know about it, yeah. that was the first road where we could get all these other exotic rods, connecting rods and stuff.
Yeah.
Scats and all those. And many years ago, I was over in California with, I think, Bill Thomas. Everybody knows him. Well, the old people do. I know him. But there he had a motor there with the Buick rods in it.
Okay.
And so it was kind of interesting. Oh, yeah. So that was a little secret there that we could go home and buy some Buick rods and put in ours, too.
Okay.
And got that 6-inch rod out of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Without buying a bunch of aluminum rods and stuff, and we didn't have money to do that.
I guess that was part of the fun in those days. There was limited availability of anything different.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you were moving parts around to make things happen.
Yeah, make things happen, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Sarge says, some guys loved him and some others hated him. And since Ed knows everything...
I don't know everything.
How about the Carter YF side draft single throat carburetor?
That would be like a 6-cylinder Chevrolet side draft Corvette carburetors.
Okay. That sounds about right.
That's about the only thing I could remember
like
being
a 54
on.
or something?
But then sometimes there was some exotic intake manifolds that would have that thing on it where you could put 4 of those carburetors on a. I think I seen a Chrysler one time. Possibly it could have been a 413 or one of those motors that had these intake manifold on it with the 4 side draft carburetors.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting, exotic.
Yeah.
That was, and all that stuff was, I think it was here in town, maybe in the 1962 or 3s or 4s or something like that. And things like that was, somebody had a lot of money that did that to a Chrysler motor. And most of that stuff basically came out of California. Most of that hot rod stuff, because they had enough money over there to do some engineering and playing with this exotic stuff. And that's what California was so interested in.
Yeah.
You can go to California and find almost anything you want.
Yeah, they do it all, don't
They
they?
do it all. Even our flathead people and Ferguson
Don
and those
Ferguson,
guys
yeah.
making the aluminum motors and things, and they got it all.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit ago, but this question comes back up here about the Chevy 4.3 V6.
Yeah. It's the same as a Chevy V8.
Yeah.
Just the 2 cylinders gone, and the Chevy was so good, such a good motor that would last and trouble-free type thing, and why wouldn't that be?
Yeah, well, they put...
It was half the motor, so...
So were the, like the pistons interchangeable?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the other parts, the valves?
Connecting rods and bearings and
Okay.
rod bearings were, main bearings were, because it's different,
Yeah.
Time and chain stuff.
Interesting,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And the design of it, the water flow and all that stuff was all the same, so why wouldn't it be a good one?
Can you tell us how you would make a 434?
434 would have to be a aftermarket block.
Okay,
Yeah, aftermarket block, because it'd be big enough bore and stuff,
okay.
and the stroke, and that's what would make a 434, yeah.
Is he talking about a small block?
Like a dart block,
Okay.
and a scat cranks and stuff, yeah.
And that's a small block design?
Small block, looks like a small block, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But you're going a little extra with
A little
the bore
extra, yeah,
especially, I guess.
a little expensive.
So now ask Ed what happens if I put a 1970 429 Super Cobra Jet timing gear in my 460 Ford F350. So
That'd be good.
a big truck.
And the lower gear is the problem.
Okay.
The lower gear in a 460 is retarded.
Interesting.
If you look at the keyways and the dots, they're half a tooth off.
Okay.
So you can tell right away. And that 429 lower gear is the same thing as a 460 police car gear. But in the book, the police car gear is the same as that 429 gear. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's a good.
That'll spark your 460 right up.
Well, Ed, thank you. This was a really fun little Q&A. We're actually not making any progress though. The questions are coming
Questions
in
are coming in.
just as fast as we
One of
can.
these days we'll have 100 questions every day.
We'll have to go longer.
Yeah, we'll have to get up early in the morning.
Yeah, we'll get up a little earlier next time.
Not stop for breakfast.
Yeah. What's
So
with,
long.
What's with the 2-hour breakfast anyway?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay, well, Ed,
We'll
thank
try
you.
to answer as many as we can.
Okay, Ed, thank you for your time.
We want to make sure everybody's happy.
Yeah, there you go. And thank you for joining us. As always,
very good.
we appreciate you coming along.
Yeah,
We'll
good.
see you on the next one.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thanks.